Alright guys, I just got this bird out of the fuel. That was my first step. I didn't want to bore y'all with that. So after the bird is skin, fleshed, and washed, this is the next step in it. Make sure I got everything all together for the most part. Alright, so I put my bird in Coleman camp fuel. It helps with the drying process, makes it a whole lot faster, so that way you're not sitting here for hours on end blow drying. But if you don't want to see me blow dry this part, of course you can just skip through if you're watching this later. But if you're watching it now, I'm going to be blow drying for probably about, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes or so. But I start at the tail, I work my way to the head. When I get to the wings, that's when I make my pit stop. But I work my way up one side, and I come back to the other, I flip it over and do it that way. So if you want to skip ahead, if you're watching us after the live, you can go ahead and do that now. But we'll go ahead and get to it. Maybe, if I have stuff plugged in. And I'm not sure if this thing's going to show me comments or not. Let's see here. I don't know if it's going to show comments if y'all write anything or not, but I'll try to talk as much as possible and explain what I'm doing. Alright, that's it for the drying. So it's about 98% done. Um, as you can see, he's all puffy now. So completely different than when they're wet. Alright, so my next step is a borax. And I start at the neck. I don't know why I do, but I always do. fill up the hole here. Get that borax down all the way into the head. And some people, I don't know, some videos I've watched, some people just cover it up with borax and they leave it all inside of it. You can do that, but it's going to create pockets in there, and just after all the birds I've done, I feel like it's not necessary to leave that much in there. It's good to leave some, but not as much as some of the videos I've watched. So it's pretty much helps preserve the skin, dry it out, and also it's a bug deterrent. But you gotta think also, like, the skin isn't gonna hold on to like all the borax, so there's no need to have a crap ton inside of it. So it's just all sit in one little pocket, and that's not going to do anything except for causing you issues when you go to mount stuff, because the skin, when you got something, a large object on the inside of it, and you're trying to get feathers to lay flat and everything, it's going to throw stuff off. But what I'll do is of course I'm covering it. I'm being very liberal with the borax, but once I get done making sure it's covering everything, I shake it out, and it's not shaking out all the borax. So you'll see if you're mounting any birds and you do it, you'll see what I'm talking about. You want to make sure you get around all the edges and everything. And that's another thing I missed in this explanation at the beginning of the video was I already beefed up some of the bone inside where the forearm is. So, because you need the skin all the way down to where the wrist is, and I already beefed up my my forearm. So that's it. So it's borax. Now we gotta run wires. Now, one thing about running wires is you gotta make sure you go all the way down to the wrist. Because if you don't, then you have to, it's just a pain in the ass to be able to get both wings matching each other if you don't. And also it helps that wing open all the way up if you're doing a flying mount. I like to get mine in a certain pocket. And that wire is not one. There it goes. The wire was not wanting to find it there for a second. But see, once you wire it up, like I'm not holding open that wing versus this one. See how it's closed? So running that wire down past the wrist, It opens up that wing for you. Now you still need to make sure that you tell your customers to, be gentle with them and that sort of thing. Obviously, you can't go putting a bunch of pressure on a little wire and a piece of cartilage that's dried. Because once it breaks loose, good luck on fixing it. I used to wrap with string, but it got to the point where I compared two separate birds, one with string and the other one with a zip tie. I couldn't tell a difference. So, just a little bit easier doing a zip tie than it is a string, because then you gotta worry about that knot coming loose and all that stuff. So, and then so far as beefing up the actual the part that connects to the shoulder, I don't know what this bone is called, but beefing up that part, I've done it in some birds. Some birds I don't, but I can't really tell a difference on that either. So that's another reason why I'm gonna go to this this competition, taxidermy competition, just to see. I don't know, because I feel like when you beef it up, like, yeah, it helped lay the feathers down flat, but is it to expedite it, or is it to make it look more natural? My birds on the underside, when I get done mounting them, I mean, they look fine on the underside. They don't look off. So going off live references. All right. Like we talked about before, we gotta get that wire down through the wrist. Now, what we're going to do here is it's also another little trick I've taught myself is some bone rebuilds are easier than others. This one is a lot easier than the rest. When this bone is broken, to rebuild it back up, I got a really thick gauge of wire, and I'm talking thick, like it's hard to bend it with your hand, so like to the point where it hurts your fingers. I have that, and what I do is I cut it to length to what size bone is missing. Get some borax. I cut it to length, and I know that this gauge wire fits inside just about any duck, inside that bone. I'm talking big duck, like mallard, shoveler, widgeons, pintails. If you go down to like teal, it probably won't fit, but I cut it to length so that way it slides down in there. And what I'll do is I'll use some borax and some super glue, and what that does is create almost like a almost like concrete. I'll pour it down inside that hole, stick my rod down in there. That makes my bone as long as what it should be. And I take some of that borax, I put it on that super glue, and that puppy ain't gonna come loose ever. I'm not sure if y'all look on the taxidermy forums or not, but that's where I got the idea, and I tested it, and it's pretty strong. Like, it's pretty strong. And it's fast too, which is nice. You don't have to sit here forever or mess with hot glue. Have a chance of getting hot glue on your feathers and that sort of stuff. So with that super glue, you can pinpoint that area, especially with the gel. I don't use any other type of super glue. But now that wire is going to act as a backing and tell me like where to stop when I go to plug it into the form. If you do decide to go with that wire trick that I do, I don't know what gauge that stuff is, but it's pretty much the biggest stuff that I could find at Tractor Supply. I like to cut my rods a little long. That way I can use one of the pieces I cut off for pinning the tail. And then also it makes sure I got enough wire when I go to run them. I'm not having to stop and redo and all that good stuff. Recut. I like to pre-do everything. So like, obviously the feet, all prepped and painted. They're injected with what's that stuff called? Master's Blend. So that way you don't have that finish work to do after the bird's mounted. You're really just waiting for it to dry. Now for running these wires, if you cut the legs out, I use a wire. I go from the inside to the outside to find my hole. Then once I find my hole, I run the wire from the outside back to the inside. And it just helps with trying to get it ran through. And then to secure the skin to the end of the leg, I just use a couple dabs of super glue, holds that skin in place. That'll be after I get it hung, because it doesn't need to happen right now. That's something that can happen like after you get done mounting it, and it's sitting there on the pedestal or wherever you're mounting it. There we go, that's better. And make sure you get that hole lined up with that bone. And that one's done. Alright. So next, we're on to the forearm. And what I do is I do my head first, or my neck. Now I do my necks to size too, so when I'm skinning, you gotta make sure that you get the proper neck size. Because if you get it too big, it's not gonna fit. If you get it too small, then you're gonna have loose skin. So that's got to be right on the money. All right, so now I got the neck ran. I'll get my wings set. And this wire, I already ran. That's my actual wire that's going to be mounted to the driftwood. So I make a J hook on the back side, and then hammer it down in there, and that's about it. See, that's that one with the wire. Wire told me where to stop because it's so thick. Yeah. I'm all right, I'll cook for you here in a minute.
Okay, I want some sparkle with an egg sandwich.
Okay.
That's what my mom makes for.
All right. Scrapple with an egg sandwich. It's growing up on me. Alright. And I like to imagine how I'm going to mount these things while I'm running this wire too, so that way it kind of helps with the adjustment process. So like the wings, I try to get them in line as much as I can while it's laying on its back like this. Like I know that they're, even with each other. One's not like, pointed this way and the other one's all cocked all, backwards or, whatever, like super cupped in. I try to get everything at least as much as symmetrical as I can while it's laying on the table. And the last thing I do is pin the tail. It's kind of like pin the tail on the donkey. Put my finger on the V of where the quills are, and then I poke my wire through that, make sure it comes out in the middle of the V. I find the very end of the form and I stick it. Yeah, I leave maybe, what's that, probably about an inch and a half worth of wire sticking out, so that way the skin doesn't, come off of the wire and fall down. Alright. Now, the next part is sewing. Sew this bad boy up. And while I do that, I gotta get the glue gun. I start at the tail. It's a lot easier to start at the tail when sewing. Try to get everything on the outside. It needs to be here because it likes to curl up. And I find my start point. That's my little trick right here. So I run my thread too, right? I don't run it to the knot. I turn around and I run my thread back through the loop. That's not gonna come through unless it actually breaks through the skin. It's not just gonna pop loose. And then sewing, I enjoy the sewing part, but I'll tell you what I'm doing. So I take my thread, I go on the other side of the bird. I go from the underside of the skin. I'm coming back through. Now, your spacing is another thing that you have to keep in mind. Is you can't go 1 inch on one side and an inch and a half on the other. So you have to be pretty good at judging your distance. And once you do it over and over and over, you'll get to the point where you'll know if you went too far or too not as far as the other one, because you'll start to see your skin like bunch up once you go tight with it, or once you get down to the neck area, you'll see one side has a bunch of skin left over and the other side doesn't have much skin to make that that even line. So it does take a little bit of practice and technique with the sewing part. It's not just throwing some thread in there and hoping for the best. And I think this is where a lot of people have issues with hiding their line. I mean, some birds that have a natural line, you can see it when live. Um, most don't though. So hiding that line is like um, a must. Another thing while you're sewing too, you want to make sure that you get that down feather. The actual feather is good, obviously, but the down feathers you want up as well when you sew, because that's what helps hide the center line as well. Now once I get up to this pole here, I make sure I'm tight. I don't come back around the pole, but I come on the side where it's still gonna hug it. So I got both pieces of thread hugging this rod. And I keep that in mind when I'm coming up to it, so that way I can adjust my spacing. And if you leave your bird to the point where it's like 98% dry, and you really don't dry those edges off yet, it makes it a little bit easier on sewing. Because what I'm going to do after I get done with the head, I'll turn around and hit this with the shop vac again, just to get it 100% dry. That's the reason why I don't go 100% with it, is because of the sewing part. And when you get down to the neck, if it's making like a teardrop on you, you're doing good. As long as you got a teardrop. If it looks like a big, massive, just nasty circle, you messed up your spacing. But you can still hide it. There's a trick on getting that circle back to being a teardrop. So. This part takes me just a little bit of time because I want to make sure I'm not tying down any of these feathers in the chest area.
I need you to put a trash bag in. My hands are full and I can't.
Alright, I'll be in there in just a second. Got the knot tied. See, she's starting to come together already. Look at that. Alright. Let me get in this trash bag and I'm gonna get the head installed here. I'll be right back. If you're watching this right now, just zoom forward about, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes. Alright, we're back. Now this head, I already painted it. I don't buy pre-painted heads, I just paint them myself. I make sure I put a black dot on the ear and black on the front and the forward part of the eye. Not on the actual eye itself, but just on the white part. But yeah, and then I go ahead and I dremel my hole out. I'm not sure if y'all can see that or not, but I dremel my hole out right there from a wire to go into. And my wire, I make like I bend the end of it down to make like an O shape. So that way when it gets inside there, that glue has hold on the entire thing. It's not going to let loose. It's not going to just slide out or pop out. And the other thing, when you inject your hot glue, you need to make sure you put it in at like almost like an angle onto it, not just shooting it down into the middle, because if you get like an air bubble or something like that down inside of it, I've heard it's got a better chance of coming loose. So I just fill up my hole like that. I do gotta go check the paperwork on this thing, see if they want it flying to the left or to the right. So once I get this head on, I'll pop in there and check the paperwork real quick. It seems fast. I know we're only at like 53 minutes, but if you knew how much prep work goes into what I did to be able to do this live, there's a lot of other stuff that goes on off camera that you just don't see. So like painting the head, I mean, being a shoveler, it's all black. I mean, that'd probably take you like a couple minutes. The feet, you gotta go through the drying process. You gotta inject them, paint them, all that stuff. So you probably got maybe, can't really count the drying part because that takes a couple days. But work-wise in the feet, you probably got maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And you still got the skinning and fleshing, washing. The fleshing, though, is what makes or breaks a mount, I think. Because if you don't get all that fat out, it's just gonna ruin it. Alright, hot glue is dried. I'm gonna get this head installed. I wish I had a camera that was like straight down on me, so that way you can actually see what my hands are doing. But I ain't that fancy. I wish I was. Alright, so I get my head skin pretty much in the area I need it. I start on the bottom piece with the jaw. I do that one first. And then I go to the back side where on top of the nose, I guess, or in between the eyes. That's the next spot I do. So that way you make sure that you're making sure that your skin is 100% not twisted on it, or at an angle. Because if it's at an angle and you go to do that top part, everyone's going to see it. So the face is definitely the thing that people look at a lot. Alright, got that one. And then this back side here. That's one good thing about using gel super glue, is that you don't have to worry about it running. Alright. Knock these sides out here. Now always make sure I use a headlamp for this part, so that way you can, for one, see what you're doing, and second, you can see that glue a little bit better too.
We still have that step stool for the bathroom.
Yeah, I think it's in here. Yeah, I'm on live, so don't say nothing crazy.
What?
I said I'm on live right now, so don't say nothing crazy.
Okay.
I'll find it here in a second. Woo. Can't catch a break. Alright. Now the head's done. And that's pretty much the gist of it on mounting something. Now the rest is hanging it onto the drip wood and then painting it, pinning, taping. I'll come back and do touch-ups wherever I need to. I know I gotta touch up down here on the bottom of the bill. It's got, just need to add some black paint to it. And then that's pretty much it. So I'll be printing for a hot minute. So just to get all the feathers in the right spot. And I don't want to sit here on live and talk to you all that long. But that is the general steps. I know I've gotten a couple people asking about mounting a bird. If you can do this and get to this part, you're pretty almost done. So the next part, like I said, is preening, and you want to make sure you use a live reference photo. Don't use a photo of like somebody else's work. Like, I mean, you could to get an idea of like the pose you want, but you still need to go back and reference live photos, because that's going to help you make sure you get the feathers in the right spot, you know, wing positions and all that stuff. But besides that, that's pretty much it. So, but if you were watching during the live, I appreciate it. I think I only saw like one person pop up, but I know there's a few of you that are actually going to watch this video. I'm going to do a different video on like the printing one. I'm going to do a different video on like the skinning and that sort of stuff. Y'all just got to bear with me because I'm busy over here and I can't hold myself up with YouTube. So, you know, customer birds are a little bit more important. So, but until next time, I've been Chris. This has been Duckalope Outdoors, and y'all stay safe out there.